And joining me now live from Tel Aviv is former Israeli Defense Force spokesperson Jonathan Conricus. Jonathan, thanks so much for coming on the show again. Hamas today praised Albanese for political courage after our Prime Minister joined other nations in saying that he'd vote to recognise a non-existent Palestinian state at the United Nations. Does this show how warped the policy position is when you have the worst terrorists on the planet praising you?
Yes, hello. Thank you for having me on. I think Hamas, they are just very happy with the developments, and they know that if there are ever free elections in what's called the Palestinian society, whether in Judea and Samaria, where the Palestinian Authority controls it, or in Gaza, these decisions by the UK, France, Canada, and now regretfully by Australia, these will be at the core of Hamas's campaign to dominate the Palestinian society. And I think that nobody should be confused or surprised. This is what Hamas will campaign on. And let me tell you, they will win. And they will win by a landslide, because what it means is that Hamas will say, our actions, our attack, our way of jihad, of extremism, that is what gets results. And when democracies around the world, like Australia, are willing to hand that victory to Hamas, then of course they are excited and happy and hopeful about the future because they got what they want.
Yeah, oh, it's such a good point. Now, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has had a conversation with Albanese, and they're going to meet on in person at the UN General Assembly next month. Now, Abbas promised Albanese that he'd accept Israel's right to exist, he'd hold elections, as you mentioned, and that he'd stop the so-called pay-for-slay policy, where the Palestinian Authority has been paying the families of terrorists. Albanese and the Foreign Minister here, Penny Wong, believed him. Should they believe him? Are they foolish and naive to believe him?
Well, I don't know if it's foolishness, naivete, or something more sinister. I don't know the two Australian politicians well enough, but I can say that they're dead wrong. And, Mahmoud Abbas has had the opportunity to recognize Israel and to end the conflict twice. Twice under his tenure, he was provided very generous and conflict-ending proposals by Israel, with land swaps, with a Palestinian capital in eastern Jerusalem, and with basically almost everything that they wanted. He still refused to recognize Israel and, importantly, to end the conflict. Why would he do so today? Another topic is elections. He is on his 20th year of a 4-year term. There have not been elections in the area that he controls, the Palestinian Authority, for all of those years. Why is that? Because they're corrupt and hated, and because they would most likely lose to whom? To Hamas. Now the situation is even worse, because Hamas, if the war ends without Hamas being defeated, that would be a victory for Hamas, and they would collect on it in elections. And last thing, Mahmoud Abbas is not a man of his words. Mahmoud Abbas isn't trusted, liked, or respected by his own people, and he shouldn't be respected or trusted by global leaders. And I think it's a terrible, terrible mistake to take him at his word.
Yeah, well, I wish Albanese and Penny Wong would listen to that and would know that, because this whole plan is trusting the word of Mahmoud Abbas. And by the way, he also promised Albanese that Hamas would have no role, that it would demilitarize. I mean, how can he possibly give a promise like this? How does the international community, this is such a key point, Jonathan, how does the international community think that Hamas will be disarmed if they're telling Israel to withdraw from Gaza? So if Israel doesn't disarm Hamas, defeat Hamas, who's going to do it?
Nobody. That's the plain short answer. And to think and believe otherwise is a fool's errand, and it is simply not realistic. If I'm Hamas and this war ends with a ceasefire, and I still have my men, I still have my guns, and I control the Palestinian population, you can better bet on it that I'm not going anywhere, and that I would consolidate the victory into retaining control over Gaza and not going anywhere, despite promises from the PA. And I think we should remind everybody that for about a year, almost a year, between 2005 and 2006, the Palestinian Authority did, in fact, control the Gaza Strip. Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip in the summer of 2005, handed it over with a bow and tie to the Palestinian Authority, and told it, govern. What they did was start to govern, had elections. Hamas won by a landslide and turned Gaza into Hamastan. And 20 years forward, October 7, and this is where we are today. So we've been here in history. We have faced the consequences of that, and we have seen the failure of the same Palestinian Authority to do what global leaders today naively think that they will be able to do in the future in a much more difficult setting. So no, that is not the future of the Gaza Strip, and that is not the future of Hamas.
No, exactly. And by the way, earlier this hour, I played a clip of Ariel Sharon speaking at the United Nations in September of 2005, right at that point. As you said, we've only got a minute left, so I don't know if you can answer this question in a minute, but Israel's current plan to take over Gaza City, less than a minute, do you think that is the best option to defeat Hamas?
The best option would be if Egypt and Qatar and Turkey, the three most important supporters of Hamas, if they tell Hamas that it's either you surrender, hand over your weapons, return the Israeli hostages, and get out of Gaza, or destruction is going to descend upon Gaza, and it will be your responsibility. The suffering, death, and damage will be your responsibility. Only if these three countries say that, then do we have a chance of not having to be forced, from an Israeli perspective, to do it. I hope that these three countries, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey, will do it. Otherwise, that is the future.
Yeah. All right. Jonathan Conricus, thank you very much for your time.